Don pretty clearly outlined what we're concerned about and why we wrote Measure M. Two things I want to emphasize. The first is the general plan update is not just a general plan update. It is a rezoning of every potentially acre in El Dorado County. What that means is that zoning historically recognizes the infrastructure limits, the limits of water, the limits of roads, the limits of fire, the limits of police protection, even in some jurisdictions, that prevent an area from going to what is aspirational, which is the ultimate build-out called for in the general plan. The county has taken a tack that the zoning and the general plan should essentially be identical. And so there is no meter in this existing zoning. There are parcels out where I live that currently, over 3,000 acres, would accommodate 43 homes under the existing zoning, and under the proposed zoning would accommodate 300 homes. Now that doesn't sound like a lot maybe in El Dorado Hills, but when it is on one of the larger cattle ranches in the county, it is concerning. So it is the zoning ordinance that is actually attempting to push this urbanization and ex-urbanization into the rural areas of the county. We have a simple premise. It's live within our limits. If you can't afford it, don't figure that you're gonna go do it. The county should live within their limits. If Highway 50 is congested, if we're out of water, if we don't have enough jobs for the people who live here or the appropriate housing for people who work here, then that's what we ought to be paying attention to. Not coming up with schemes to justify the approval of another 16,000 homes, 17,000 homes, essentially a doubling of the homes that can be built tomorrow without another action except to apply for a building permit. The idea that we'll fix traffic by busing people, or that waiting time on the freeway is how Caltrans measures. I'm a numbers man, Jack's a numbers man. It's 2,400 cars per hour. The county agrees that that's level service F, so is Caltrans. So bottom line is that Measure M is a simple voter request to do what the voters have done twice already, to protect Highway 50 and our rural quality of life.
Hi, Kim Beal. Just so you'll have a little more background, I was not born here, unlike Jack Sweeney, but I did move here to Cameron Park in 1966 with my parents and siblings, and I still live in Cameron Park. And I've been in real estate since 1978, so that's a good long run. And I've been active in paying attention to general plan, land use decisions, zoning, and all of that since I've been here, mostly since '85 actually. I've been doing this. So when Jack speaks of going back to 1987 and area plans, I remember those days. A couple of comments on what was just given to you, information given to you. The general plan, when it was being processed, was planning for an additional 32,500 residential units, not parcels. Of those numbers, as they've been doing the general plan update, Planning Department presented a report to the staff, to the Board of Supervisors just this year, and they said already that 15,000 of those units are already built. So what remains is another 17,500 residential units. And the reason I use units as opposed to parcels is because of the multifamily properties. Of those units that we're talking about, 6,000 of them are on multifamily. And that would be to create apartments, condominiums, townhomes, that kind of a thing. And so it includes those parcels as well. Additionally, when the general plan was created, it called for 75% of this growth to be in community regions, which is mostly the west end of the county, and 25% of the growth to be taking place in the rural areas. And you might have seen that just recently too, where the county reaffirmed that they want to continue with the traditional growth of the county, and that's at a 1% growth rate, which is low when you look at other areas of California for sure. As to zoning, State law, general plan law says that the general plan trumps zoning. This policy here that is being proposed would suggest that we're going to have zoning trump the general plan. And if that's inconsistent, as it is with the state law, then what it'll require is that the general plan will have to be amended to downgrade general plan land use designations to zoning. So when they talk about just the fact that there's two policies here in this general plan that are going to be amended, that's just the beginning. Because every single thing in the general plan, we have one policy. By the way, there's over 1,000 policies in the general plan. Here it is, adopted in 2004, and the voters in March 2005 approved this document as well. The reason in El Dorado County that a lot of the zoning hasn't taken place to be consistent with the general plan is in our county, we have traditionally waited until an applicant, whether it be a property owner or a developer, wants to improve a particular property before they go in and say, okay, I want to rezone this property to be consistent with the general plan. Most jurisdictions in California don't do that. When they have a general plan, they go through the process of rezoning all of the parcels. But that just hasn't been our tradition. And that is why you hear people say, our zoning is inconsistent with general plan. Yep, you're right, it is. But general plan law says, general plan designation trumps zoning. I'm going to defer the rest of my time to Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Kim. I don't want to tell you folks all these numbers because they're very confusing. And it's my strong opinion that the opposition opponent summary that they've double counted. They didn't subtract the underlying parcels. They took the additions, and I think there's quite a bit of difference, but they've never taken into consideration the topography of this county. All those numbers are what I call flat paper numbers. So if you look, we've only produced in this county about 65 to 70% of the number of parcels that the piece of paper says you could get. And then after you get into the process, you wind up losing even some more. So we don't wind up with that many parcels. The second thing is what Kim referred to. When we approved the general plan in 2004, we said that within a year you were supposed to update the zoning. Well, you can see what it takes to update the zoning. We're still working on it. And that's what part of this LUPU process. For 5 years now, several hundred people have been, or at least 200 or 300 people have been working to come up with a community plan that would ultimately make all of this work. And one of the big problems was what to do with the multifamily and the low income and how to fit all that in. And we're required by state law to fit that in. We just can't ignore it because if we do, the state will call our general plan out of order. And we can't have that. Mr. Bakke or Mr. Senator referred to the largest cattle ranch in the county, and that's the Bakke Ranch. Already, the American River organization, American River Conservancy, has bought up at least 1,500 acres of that land, and they use it along the river for open space. I think it makes for better rafting. It keeps it so they don't look at housing projects. I don't disagree with them, but that's what's. The cattle industry there did not go off to development, it went off to open space. The same thing has happened on the south end of the county, where Highway 49 leaves the county. The Conservancy has just purchased about 5,000 acres of that land. So we're taking land out of production for these cattle people, and it's going to be, in my mind, it's going to be a bad deal because nobody's going to take care of the land. It's going to be a fire hazard. But so be it. We've got to update one way or the other. We've got to sit down and make sure that the general plan map and the zoning map show the same kind of things, the same kind of growth. And that's part of what's wrong with both Major M and Major O. It kind of hits it with a shotgun and tears it up so that you don't know where you really are. It's going to tend to give us a lot of confusion. I would really like to see us stay with this general plan process that we've been working on. The general plans, or the EIR is out. It's on the website. All this is on the website. Don't take my word for it. Don't believe me. I don't want you to believe me. Please go look at some of these websites before you make up your mind. and say, where do you think the truth is, and where do you think the truth